In 1958, Antoine Guérini, the most powerful crime boss in the Mediterranean, had offered Alain leadership of his entire criminal empire. It was an offer that most men would have killed for: unlimited money, absolute power, and control of everything from casinos to drug trafficking routes that generated tens of millions of francs every year. But Alain had walked away. He had chosen the uncertain path of acting over the guaranteed wealth of organized crime. At the time, it seemed like a noble decision that had cost him nothing more than a hypothetical fortune. He was wrong. Antoine Guérini was not the kind of man who forgot rejection, especially from someone he had personally chosen for greatness. In the brutal world of Corsican organized crime, refusing an offer from the head of a family wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration that you considered yourself above their authority. For years, Guérini had maintained a cold but professional relationship with Alain through their mutual friend, François Marcantoni. He had even attended some of Alain's film premieres and sent congratulatory gifts when his movies became successful. But underneath the civilized facade, the crime boss was waiting for an opportunity to teach Alain a lesson about the consequences of disrespect. That opportunity came in 1968, when Alain became embroiled in the Stefan Markovitch murder investigation. Suddenly, France's most famous actor was connected to a blackmail operation, photographed with known criminals, and questioned by police about his relationships with members of the underworld. The scandal threatened to destroy everything Alain had built since rejecting Guérini's offer. For the general public, the Markovitch affair was simply a celebrity scandal involving drugs, sex, and murder. But for those who understood the hidden connections between crime and politics in 1960s France, it was something much more dangerous. Alain's association with Markovitch had exposed the secret networks that connected movie stars, politicians, and crime bosses. It had revealed how criminal money flowed into legitimate businesses and how organized crime families influenced everything from film production to government policy. Most damaging of all, it had made Alain appear to be an informant who might cooperate with authorities to save his own career. In March 1967, Antoine Guérini was gunned down outside a Marseille restaurant by rivals who were trying to take over his territory. As he lay dying on the sidewalk, his final words to his lieutenant were reported to be, "The pretty boy thinks he's untouchable. Show him he's not." Within weeks of Guérini's death, word spread through the criminal underworld that there was a contract on Alain Delon's life. The price was rumored to be 2 million francs, enough money to ensure that only the most skilled and ruthless assassins would accept the job. What made the contract particularly dangerous was that it came with Guérini's personal blessing from beyond the grave. In Corsican criminal culture, a dying boss's final orders carried the weight of sacred obligation. Anyone who fulfilled the contract would not just be paid, they would earn legendary status within the organization. The first attempt came in June 1969, less than 3 months after Guérini's death. Alain was leaving a restaurant in the 8th arrondissement of Paris when a motorcycle pulled alongside his car at a red light. The passenger on the motorcycle drew a gun and fired 3 shots through the driver's side window. Miraculously, all 3 bullets missed. The first shot shattered the window but passed behind Alain's head. The second shot hit the headrest where his skull would normally have been, but he had bent forward to reach for something on the floor at the exact moment the trigger was pulled. The third shot went wild when the motorcycle hit a pothole just as the assassin fired. Alain's driver, a former police officer named Marcel Heydrich, immediately gunned the engine and sped away, running 2 red lights and taking evasive turns through narrow side streets until they were certain they weren't being followed.
It was like watching someone dodge bullets in a movie, except in real life, people don't usually survive when professional assassins get that close. The second attempt occurred just 4 weeks later, and it was even more elaborate. Alain was staying at a hotel in Cannes during the film festival when a team of 3 assassins gained access to his floor by posing as room service staff. They had studied his schedule, learned his habits, and planned to kill him in his suite during what should have been a routine breakfast delivery. But at the last moment, Alain decided to change his breakfast plans. Instead of eating in his room as usual, he spontaneously decided to meet a director in the hotel restaurant to discuss a potential film project. When the assassins entered his empty suite, they found only housekeeping staff who had arrived early to prepare the room for checkout. The killers were forced to abort their mission and leave the hotel without being identified.
The third attempt was the most sophisticated, and it should have been impossible to survive. In August 1969, professional hitmen learned that Alain would be driving from Paris to his country house in Douchy on a specific route at a predictable time. They positioned themselves at a remote section of highway where the road curved through a heavily wooded area with no witnesses for miles in either direction. The plan was to use a high-powered rifle to kill Alain while his car was forced to slow down for the curve. It was a textbook assassination setup that had been used successfully by the same team in at least 6 previous contracts. But just as Alain's car approached the killing zone, a massive truck carrying livestock broke down directly in front of the assassin's position. The truck driver, trying to clear the highway, began directing traffic around his disabled vehicle. For nearly an hour, the assassins were trapped in their hidden position while dozens of cars, including Alain's, were rerouted onto side roads to avoid the traffic jam. By the time the truck was moved and the highway reopened, Alain was safely at his destination, completely unaware that he had just escaped death by minutes. After 3 failed attempts, even the most ruthless killers in the Corsican underworld began to question whether Alain Delon was protected by something more powerful than luck. But the attempts continued. In September 1969, poisoned wine was delivered to Alain's Paris apartment with a note claiming it was a gift from an admiring fan. The wine contained enough strychnine to kill 6 men, but Alain never opened the bottle. His housekeeper had noticed that the wine label was slightly crooked and the cork appeared to have been tampered with. She called the police, who confirmed that the bottle was a sophisticated murder weapon. In October, a car bomb was planted under Alain's Maserati while it was parked outside a movie theater. The device was designed to explode when the engine started, but it malfunctioned due to a manufacturing defect in the detonator. When bomb disposal experts examined the device, they found that it contained enough explosives to destroy an entire city block. In November, snipers took positions outside Alain's country house and waited for 3 days for a clear shot. On the 4th morning, a freak fog rolled in that reduced visibility to less than 10 feet. The assassins were forced to abandon their mission when they realized they couldn't even see their target, much less shoot him accurately. By December 1969, the assassination contract on Alain Delon had become the most famous failure in French criminal history. 7 different teams of professional killers had attempted to fulfill the contract, and all of them had failed in ways that seemed to defy explanation. What happened next was even more extraordinary. On New Year's Eve 1969, François Marcantoni arranged a secret meeting with Alain at a safe house in Corsica. Marcantoni, who had originally introduced Alain to Antoine Guérini 11 years earlier, had been watching the assassination attempts with growing amazement and concern. "You need to understand something," Marcantoni told Alain. "What's been happening to you isn't normal. Professional killers don't fail 7 times in a row. When the best assassins in Europe can't kill one man despite having multiple perfect opportunities, there's only one explanation." "What explanation?" Alain asked. "Someone more powerful than Guerini is protecting you." Marcantoni then revealed something that changed everything Alain thought he knew about his relationship with the criminal underworld. Since 1958, when Alain had first rejected Guerini's offer, he had been under the secret protection of the Union Corse, the most powerful criminal organization in France. The Union Corse was an alliance of Corsican families that was older, more sophisticated, and more influential than any single crime boss, including Antoine Guerini. The Union Corse had been watching Alain's career with interest, not because they wanted to recruit him, but because they recognized something that Guerini had missed. Alain's refusal to join organized crime, combined with his subsequent success as an actor, made him more valuable as an independent ally than he would have been as a subordinate member of any criminal organization. The Union Corse was unlike any other criminal organization in the world. Founded in the early 1900s, it operated more like an intelligence network than a traditional crime family. Its members included judges, politicians, police officers, and business leaders across Europe and North Africa. They controlled not just criminal enterprises, but legitimate businesses, media outlets, and even cultural institutions. What made them particularly sophisticated was their understanding of soft power. Unlike Guerini, who relied on violence and intimidation, the Union Corse preferred to influence events through strategic alliances and carefully planned interventions. They recognized that having a famous actor who was genuinely independent but secretly protected could serve their interests in ways that a recruited criminal never could. Alain's films were watched by millions of people across Europe, making him a powerful cultural figure. His association with controversial characters in movies like Le Samurai and Borsellino helped romanticize and normalize certain aspects of criminal culture without directly promoting criminal activity. This served the Union Corse's interests by making their world seem more sophisticated and appealing to young people who might otherwise view organized crime as purely destructive. You think you walked away from our world in 1958, but you didn't. You just chose a different relationship with it. The Union Corse has been protecting you because your independence serves our interests better than your membership ever could. The protection had been invisible but comprehensive. Union Corse operatives had been monitoring Alain's movements, identifying potential threats, and neutralizing them before they could become dangerous. This surveillance network was so sophisticated that it included assets in police departments, telephone companies, and even film production crews. When assassins were planning attacks, Union Corse informants would learn about them days or weeks in advance. When killers were positioning themselves for ambushes, Union Corse technicians would cause convenient mechanical failures or create strategic distractions. The organization had resources that included everything from electronic surveillance equipment to specially trained operatives who could sabotage vehicles or weapons without being detected.
Every assassin who tried to kill you found their weapons malfunctioning, their intelligence compromised, or their escape routes blocked, Marcantoni revealed. We've been playing chess with Guerini's people, and they didn't even know they were in a game. The revelation also explained why certain aspects of the Stefan Markovitch investigation had been handled so delicately by French authorities. The Union Corse's influence extended into law enforcement and government agencies, ensuring that Alain's interrogations never became too intensive and that certain evidence was never made public. The revelation explained everything. The precise timing of the mechanical failures, the coincidental traffic jams, the mysterious fog that appeared exactly when snipers were in position. What had appeared to be miraculous luck was actually the result of careful intervention by an organization with resources that dwarfed anything Antoine Guérini had controlled. But the protection came with a price, and that price was silence. Alain was told that he could never speak publicly about what he had learned. He could never acknowledge the Union Corps' protection or reveal the true reason for his survival. As far as the world was concerned, he had simply been extraordinarily lucky. "Your life belongs to you," Marcantoni told him, "but the secret of how you kept it belongs to us." The assassination contract on Alain Delon was officially canceled on January 15, 1970, exactly 10 months after Antoine Guérini's death. The cancellation was announced through the same underground networks that originally spread news of the contract, and it carried a simple message: anyone who harmed Alain Delon would face retaliation from forces more powerful than any individual crime family. For Alain, the end of the assassination attempts marked the beginning of a new understanding of his place in the world. He realized that his rejection of Guérini's offer in 1958 hadn't been the end of his relationship with organized crime. It had been the beginning of a different kind of relationship, one that was more complex and more dangerous than anything he could have imagined. The experience also changed how he approached his career and his public image. Knowing that he was under the protection of forces he couldn't fully understand or control made him more cautious about his associations, more careful about his statements, and more aware of the hidden connections between legitimate and criminal power. In later interviews, when asked about the rumors that there had been attempts on his life in 1969, Alain would always give the same response: "I have been very lucky in my life, and I am grateful for that luck."
Those who knew the truth understood that his survival had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with the invisible networks of power that governed the hidden side of French society. The story of the failed assassination attempts became legendary in criminal circles across Europe. It was told as a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating the complexity of the relationships between crime, politics, and celebrity in post-war France. Today, more than 50 years later, the true details of how Alain Delon survived 7 assassination attempts remain one of the most closely guarded secrets in the history of organized crime. The Union Corps never publicly acknowledged their role in his protection, and Alain kept his promise never to reveal what he had learned. But the story serves as a reminder that in the world of international crime and high-stakes politics, the most powerful forces are often the ones that remain completely invisible, and sometimes the most dangerous enemies can become the most unlikely protectors. If this incredible survival story fascinated you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who loves true crime mysteries and stories about the hidden connections between crime and celebrity. And tell us in the comments, do you believe in luck, or do you think there are always hidden forces at work? Because sometimes the truth is more extraordinary than any fiction.